Hey everyone, and welcome to Hope for the Future, the 2021 Financial Goals Workshop. So just so everyone knows, we have a few housekeeping things. Be sure to open that chat box so that you can participate tonight and that I can see and you can see what everyone else is saying. Also, since this workshop is being recorded, I am muting everyone and I'm going to take live questions at the end so that we can respect everyone's time and privacy. And number three, you will receive a link to this recording via email. So don't worry about taking notes, just sit back and enjoy. All right, so who am I? Okay, so this is my family, for those of you who don't know. I'm not the tallest one in the picture, obviously. That is my daughter, Alexandra. Then it's me and my husband, Chad, and my son, Benjamin. This is my crew. We live in South Central PA, and I've been married for over 18 years, and my kids have always been homeschooled. So if you're here with us live, throw up in the chat where you're located and tell us something about yourself. So the purpose of tonight's workshop is twofold. One is I'm going to cover the nuts and bolts of how to evaluate your situation, set goals, and create a plan to get there. And number two is, in doing the above, I'm going to provide hope and a better future for your family. And this isn't just for those that are in debt or living paycheck to paycheck. It's also for those that are ready to leave a legacy for their children and their children's children and everyone in between. 2020 is officially over, and we are all hoping that 2021 will be a better year. So today we're going to talk about how to make that happen. All right. So why am I here? So here are some scary numbers that have really hit home with me. These numbers just break my heart. And honestly, it is probably worse now because of 2020. I want to help people build a financial plan that works when times are good and when times are bad. If you can see the numbers on your screen, it says 78% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. What that means is that you're in serious trouble if something happens to a paycheck that doesn't come in. You're not going to be able to make your rent or your mortgage or buy groceries. It's going to be life-altering and not in a good way. The other number is 7 out of 10 couples do not budget consistently. And I know budgeting does not sound fun, but budgeting is something we'll talk a little bit later in tonight's presentation, but it's so very important, and it doesn't have to be the restrictive straitjacket that many people make it out to be. And then last but not least, I want to focus on the bottom number, and that's 66% of people, and this ties in with the paycheck to paycheck, but so 66% of Americans would not have enough money or would struggle to come up with enough money if they had a $1,000 emergency. Now, let's think about that. A $1,000 emergency. What could create a $1,000, even just a few $100 emergency would be, washer and dryer go out. It could be repairs on a car. It could be a medical bill. It could be lots of different things. And if you've ever had an expense that you did not see coming and that took you for a loop, throw in the chat what that expense was. Okay. So let's get started. Do you, and I refer oftentimes, if you're married, so with you and your spouse, but obviously not everyone's married, so you want to talk to everyone here tonight. But do you, and if you're married, you and your spouse create a budget every month? Just throw in the chat, your answers. Yes, no. I'm seeing a lot of no's. All right. Thank you for being honest. Do you know your current net worth? Just throw in the chat, yes or no. Oh, one yes, that's good. Yep, but a lot of no's. All right, and do you have financial goals for the future of your family? Yeah, lots of yeses. We all know where we want to go, right? And I'm going to challenge you on what exactly your goal is later tonight. All right. All right, step one, where have you been? We want you to list it all out. All of your debts, all your assets, and your biggest homework assignment is to go back and track your expenses for the past 90 days. Does this sound hard? It's really not hard, but it is time consuming. We just need to pull out all of our credit card statements, our bank statements, PayPal, Venmo, whatever you use. Anytime that you're sending money away to someone else, gather all that information into one place. This is a very eye-opening experience. And if for some reason you can't quite do this because of life circumstances have changed or things just haven't been normal, you can track it for the next 90 days. So we can all do this, right? All right. But my experience as a financial coach has shown me that most people don't really know where their money is going. And for the small percentage of us that do, it's still a good exercise to do for the rest of this workshop so that we have all those numbers in front of you and they're up to date. In the past, I've had clients write down during our initial consultation, write down what they think they spend and where they spend it on paper before doing this deep dive into tracking their back expenses. And let me tell you, there was always surprises. Some are good, and well, some are just things that we need to give attention to, right? As you write down all of the expenses, you can just categorize them. So anything that is food related or groceries, you put in one column or in one number, right? We want to categorize anything that's auto, whether it's car payment, gas, repairs, right? We can categorize our home. So some people will put like their rents, and I challenge you to put your rent and or your mortgage separate from like utilities, but in your utilities, you can put down, phone, heat, electric, gas, those types of things. Even internet can go there, but I challenge you to pull anything entertainment. Just watch that, because cable, and sometimes they're all bundled, but pull out the things that are cable, your Netflix, things like that, and keep those in like an entertainment. And even back with the food items, you want to separate what you buy at the store versus what you eat out. So separate those out. All right. But just as you go through, you'll see how these naturally these categories kind of pop up. And you want to identify them as you go, because this will be super helpful to see where all your money is going and help you create that budget in the future. But as we do this, I want you to think about this. How big is a rear view mirror? What's it for? Right? Rear view mirror is about this big, and it's for looking backwards, right? And seeing how we've been, seeing where we've been. All right. Now, how big is your windshield? A lot bigger, right? What is it for? It's for seeing where you're going, right? So I want you to always remember that it's okay to glance back, but we always want to be focused on where we're going. All right, step 2. I think I saw one person said they do know what their net worth is, but in case you don't, that's totally fine. That's what we're here for. Step 2 is calculating your net worth. So your net worth is essentially that blue dot that shows you where you are on the map, the financial map. All right. So you'll see this little cartoons I have been up on the screen. So you're going to take the value of your home. You're going to take all the money you have in savings, whether that's in the bank or it's in a mutual fund or it's in, lately there's a lot about Robinhood. It was in stocks. It's in your retirement, any investments. So the only thing I will caution you here is some people will allow it. I don't normally recommend putting the value of your car here, only because cars tend to depreciate over time. So I usually just keep it to your mortgage, maybe if you have, if you have like maybe silver coins or gold or investments, savings, all that kind of stuff. So you get that number together, you list it all out, you compile that number, and then you subtract your debt. So what is your debt? Your debt is the amount of money you owe to someone else. So it's the balance on your home if you have a home or a mortgage. It's going to be the amount you owe to credit cards, lines of credit, personal loans. Anytime you've borrowed money, it can even be family members. If you owe money to family members, put it on there. All right. So you're going to take the first number minus the second number, and then the final number, what it equals, is your net worth. So this is very simplistic, I understand, but this is where we're starting. So that number can be a positive number, and sometimes it can be a negative number. And I don't want that to scare you because we're going to move you in the right direction. All right. But we need to, like I said, that your net worth is essentially the blue dot that shows you where you are on the financial map, right? That's what we said. But see, your financial plan is like a GPS. That blue dot is not your forever. Our financial plan, when we're comparing it to a GPS, is we need to know where we're at before we can get directions to where we're going to go. So that blue dot, that net worth number, whether it's little, whether it's big, or whether it's negative, that's just our starting point, right? All right. So step 3, evaluate. All right. We want to spend some time really evaluating where we are at. If you're married, you need to both look at these numbers and talk about this together. Spend some time on this. How do you feel about it when you see these numbers? And you're looking at your assets, you're looking at your debts, you're looking at your net worth, you're looking at where your money is going each month. There's categories we talked about. Is your eating out budget bigger than your car payment? Is it bigger than your mortgage? Is, your mortgage half of your income, right? You really want to look at all those numbers and just kind of sit with them for a bit, right? How do you feel about where you've been and where you're currently going? And when I say currently going, I mean that decision, like if you stay where you're at and nothing changes, how do you feel about that? When looking at your numbers, do you notice anything that you want to change? Because it's all about you. As a financial coach, I'm not here. Oh, I lost my chat. There we go. As a financial coach, I am not here to tell you what to do or where to put your money or how to cut your budget. I'm here to help you decide where you're going to do with all those things. We're going to set goals and we're going to evaluate what you're doing against your goals. And then you get to decide what and where you want to change and what and where you want to go, right? So what numbers do you want to be different, right? So take a hard look and think about it. But before we go on to step 4, just pause and think for a second. So we've identified all of our numbers where we're at now. We've sat back and looked at them and thought about, where we want to go, how do these numbers make us feel. But now I want you to pause and do this little exercise with me. What does financial freedom mean to you? Put it in the chat. All right. Options. Yes, it means choice, less stress, not having to go to work anymore. If that's your choice, it could. Enough savings to cover an emergency. Yes. These are all great answers. But I like the one who said financial freedom gives you options. It gives you a choice. For many clients, I recommend they sit back and decide what their why is, to know their why. So what does financial freedom mean to you? It means lots of things to lots of people. These are all great answers in the chat. But now I want you to think about why. Why do you want to be financially free? Yep. So one of the first homework assignments I often give to my clients that are married, I recommend they go do a dream date. And what I mean by this is that it can just be a coffee shop. It doesn't have any fancy or elaborate, just to get outside of the house, outside of distractions. Your kids, leave them at home or leave them with family or friends, and just decide, what do you want for your life? Where do you want to go? What goals do you have? Think back to a time where before many of us are in, that rat race. We're in the day-to-day. We're living just to keep up with what we have to do that day. But think about, what you want for your life, and the dreams you had. Maybe you feel like, what is it that God wants for your life? If money, and think about these questions, and these are good prompters. If money were no concern, and what I mean by that is if you had no debt, including a mortgage, right? If you had enough money in the bank to cover you, right? If money was not a concern, it's never not going to be a focus because you always have to be aware of what our money isn't doing. But if it was not a concern, how would you spend your days? Would you still work at the same job? What would you do for fun? Who would you help? How would you serve? Right? We're getting beyond what's on the surface and going a little deep because we want to know your why. How does it feel to say, I want to be financially free out loud? Is it scary? Do you have voices in your head right away saying, no, that'll never happen, it's impossible? Do you have a hopeful thought like, I could be it? Share with me in the chat. What do you feel like when you say the words, I want to be financially free out loud? That's okay. So someone brought up a good point. They're conflicted because the Bible says the love of money is the root of evil, and I 100% agree. But what I want to explain to you, and this is an illustration that Dave Ramsey gives a lot in FPU, is that money is amoral. And what I mean by amoral is it's not good and it's not bad. Money itself is not good or not bad, right? It's like a brick. And what I mean by that, you can take a brick and you can build an orphanage, you can build a hospital, you can do good things with that brick. Or you can take a brick and throw it through the window of a store, right? It's not up to the brick. The brick doesn't care. It's not up to the money. The money doesn't care. It's up to the person holding it. So money is a tool. It's what I call an amplifier. And what I mean by amplifier is there are good people with money and there are bad people with money, right? And so money is just a reflector or an amplifier of who you truly are. So money is not going to make you bad or evil. Money is just going to amplify you. And that's why I love to focus on the last two questions on your screen. And that is, who would you help and how would you serve others, right? Your why is so, so important. Your why is what's going to get you through those days that are long and hard, and you are like, man, I just can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, or I just can't eat another dinner of ramen noodles or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or whatever it is that you're working through. Your why is what's going to be here. I love the quote from Ben Franklin. He says, motivation is when your dreams put on work clothes. I'm going to say that again. Motivation is when your dreams put on work clothes. And that's exactly what your why is. Your why is your motivation, right? All right. Just see if there's any other questions I need to answer before I move on. All right. All right. So Proverbs 14:23 says, all work brings a profit, but mere talk leads to poverty. And that's Proverbs 14:23. What I'm going to say to you is becoming financially free is simple. Now, never confuse simple with easy, because it's not. All right, now on to step 4, setting financial goals. All right, what would you like to accomplish financially? There's lots of things out there that we can accomplish. It can be saving enough for retirement. Maybe it's saving for retirement so we can retire early. Maybe it is getting out of debt. Maybe it's paying off the mortgage. Maybe it's saving up for a down payment on your first home. There's lots of goals that could be done financially. If you have a goal in mind, throw it up in the chat. I'd love to see it. But as we think about what our financial goals are, I challenge you to not just think of goals. I challenge you to think of SMART goals, and I challenge you to write them down and share them. All right. What do I mean by SMART goals? SMART goals, I mean, is an acronym. By SMART, it means specific. They have to be specific. So yes, so I'm gonna pick on someone in the chat who just says, I wanna be debt-free. So being debt-free is a fabulous, fabulous goal. But if you're not specific, it can just be a wish sometimes, right? So you wanna be debt-free. So maybe you don't have to do this in the chat, but when you're writing it down for yourself, put in that number. I wanna pay off, $20,000 of debts, whatever that number is, and then put a date on it, right? You wanna be very specific. So the S in SMART is specific, measurable, right? So it wants to be measurable. Again, we just seen the example of debt-free. Measurable, how you know that you've achieved it. You'll know you've achieved it when you are debt-free. You will know you've achieved it when that last one is paid off. You will know you achieved it when you hit that money mark, right? So it's gonna be measurable. Now, A, achievable, can accomplish it in a set time frame. So maybe you're sitting there looking at, you have $80,000 in credit card debt and personal loans, right? So, or even student loans. Student loans are the number one largest debt item that most people have today. It used to be mortgages, but it's now student loans, right? So maybe you're looking at $80,000 or $120,000 in student loan, and that just seems so big, right? So let's break it down. I'm going to pay off $10,000 of my student loan by June 2021, right? So you can break it down to small bite sizes, right? Now, relevant. You want to make sure that your goals are relevant, which means they align with what your values are, and they align with what your long-term goals are, and they align with the way you're heading. So if, for relevancy, so if you're in debt, maybe now's not the best time to set a goal to take a vacation to Hawaii. Because yes, taking a vacation to Hawaii is also a financial goal, because you have to set aside that money, and you have to plan it. So again, lots of stuff to do. And we did R. T is time bound, and we already talked about that, putting a date on it, putting a time and a date on it. So if you've come up with a SMART goal, throw it in the comments. I want to see them. Let's see. I want to retire, but in 10 years. Okay. All right, someone's writing. Yes, that is a good one. I want to save up a down payment. So I would challenge you to put a number to that down payment. I want to save up a down payment for the purchase of our first home by August 2021. And that's beautiful. So I just challenge you that to put a number in that one. Okay. All right. So step 4 is setting financial goals. Step 5 is creating the plan. Now that we have the goals, what do we do with them? How do we get there? Right? So I told you to write them down because you want to keep them in front of you. Whether you have a journal, you put it in, you see it, you can put them in your mirror. And if these are things that you and your spouse are working towards, you want to put it in a place that both of you can see it. But creating it, but that's not going to make it happen, right? We talked about that before. So how do we turn our goals into a plan? We're going to start with a budget. These are financial goals. So it always has to start with a budget. That's step 1. Step 2, we're going to identify small action steps. All right. So even though in the example we had last slide was paying off, I forget the number now, but say $80,000 in debt and chunking it down to $10,000 by June, right? Even though it is a small step, but now we need to break it down even smaller. We need to break it down to monthly or even weekly tick marks. So we need to break that down. So that would be a small action step, right? But other action steps would be things like increasing your income. How are you going to increase your income? Let's say you get a part-time job, ask for a raise, pick up extra hours, right? There's lots of ways to do that. You know, a side hustle, build a side hustle. Also, you could sell stuff. You know, we all have more stuff than we probably need, right? There's stuff that we could sell. Action step could also be save more. So maybe when you're creating your budget, you want to say, okay, we need to increase our savings. In order to do that, we need to spend less. So there's another action step. Spend less on groceries. Spend less on eating out. Spend less on entertainment. You know, it could, maybe an action step could be, okay, maybe I'm saving for that vacation in Hawaii. So I'm going to open a savings account and set it up for, you know, $10 a paycheck's going to go in that savings account automatically. These are all little tiny steps you can take towards our goal. Maybe you can go back and review your accounts. And by accounts, I mean like your insurance, your cable, your phone. Sometimes you call and do a check on it. You can check other companies. You can ask for a better deal. Not guaranteed, but it's always worth asking. So there's lots of little action steps that we can take. All right. Get accountability. Now, when I say accountability, if you have a friend that you go shopping with every week, she's not going to be the best of accountability partners, right? If she's encouraging to, oh, buy 3, they're on sale. If that's your friend, she's not the accountability partner you want. Now, spouses. Sometimes spouses is enough accountability. Yes, if you work well together and you have the same goals and you move in direction together and you can do a budget together, then your spouse is a perfect accountability. If you're single, I encourage you to find a friend or a mentor or a parent or a financial coach to help you through this, even if it's just a check-in once in a while, right? And to be consistent. Always, always be consistent. So I'm gonna go back to budgeting real quick. Budgeting gives you more control over your money. Again, against the myths against budgeting, it actually gives you more control over your doing because you're planning it out ahead of time. But so how do we turn our goals into a plan? We start with a budget, identify small action steps, get accountability, and be consistent. So successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. I absolutely love this quote. It applies to so many different areas of our life, whether it's financial, whether it's health, whether it's dieting, whether it's a career goal. But listen to this. Successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. So those little habits that you want to cultivate in your life, whether it's exercise or things that you're putting in your body or anything, you need to do it consistently. All right. So that's the steps that we have. So now I'm looking at bonus 1. And this is my thing. Like, mindset has a lot to do with it. I'm currently working on something that I'm hoping to release later this year called building a biblical-based money mindset, because mindset has a lot to do with it. But so do our actions, right? So I'm going to challenge you to stop trying and do. How many times, answer this in the comments, how many times have you said, I'm going to try to do that? Someone says, hey, can you make it to my party on Saturday? Oh, I'll try to. Can you read those chapters by Thursday? I'll try to. Can you bring cupcakes to the bake sale? I'll try to, right? When someone says, I'll try to, Do you count on it? I know I'm guilty of a lot of times when I say I try to, it's because it's not the top of my priority, right? So let's look at the definitions. Try, by definition, means to attempt to change with minimum effect, right? Or effect. I always get those confused. Now look at the definition of do, to achieve or complete. And it will come through your financial goals. We need to stop trying and start doing. All right, so on to bonus 2. I told you we come back to budgeting. So briefly, every budget should contain these 4 things: your income, your giving, your saving, and your spending. So even though this is not a budgeting workshop, budgeting is too important not to camp out here for a minute, because you need to plan where you're going to use every dollar before the month begins. This can be on paper, you can do it on a spreadsheet, on a computer, or it can be an app. And what you see on your screen is a free app called Every Dollar. And it's the app that my family uses. Me and my husband both use it, and we love it. But find out what works for you. If paper works for you, great. If something on the computer works, great. But I'll tell you, the reason I love the everyday, or the every money, every dollar, I was gonna get that right sooner or later. The reason I love oh look, yes, I see some of you guys already have the app. That's great. Oh, you have it, but you're not using it. So yeah, we can work through that. All right, so the reason I love the app so much is because for myself and my husband, at the click of a button, picking up our phone, we can see exactly where we are any month. He's got it on his phone, I have it on my phone. So it doesn't matter if he's at the grocery store or I'm at the grocery store, we know what's left in the budget. If he's got one of the kids out and they say, I need a new pair of shoes, and look down, their toes poking out, he can look at the app and say, yes, we have the money in our clothing shoe budget that we can buy shoes, right? He doesn't have to call me or think, well, I think I got the money, or, it's a need, we have to go with it. And with that said, what happens when there's a need arises and you didn't plan for it? It's not in the budget. Then if you have a spouse that you're working with, or if you have an accountability partner that you're working with, and you go back to your budget and you look and you say, where can this come from? All right. So say you don't have enough money in your budget to buy your kids shoes and they need new shoes, right? They can't get to one more month, right? Or maybe they lost a shoe, lots of things happen. Anyway, so you have to look at your budget and say, okay, where can I pull this money from? Can I pull it from entertainment? Maybe we just don't eat out one more time this month. Maybe we pull it from groceries and we eat out of the pantry, whatever it has to be, you look at it. Maybe you have a line in your grocery budget for fun money, or for, for a vacation or something else that you can take it from temporarily, right? But you have to work through this. Now, if you've never budgeted before, I give you 110% permission to fail the first 1 to 3 months. And I always want to stress this with my clients, because it's a learning curve, right? Now, doing the exercise that we talked about at the beginning of this workshop, tracking your spending for the past 90 days, that's going to help you create that budget. But I caution you, because some people think, oh, we can do this. We're going to get, if their goal is trying to pay down debt or save for a down payment on their house, or they have a big money goal that's going to require tightening of their budget, they try to tighten it too much, and they have to go back and adjust it. And there's no shame in that, because of the learning process, right? You're still better off than you had been. Now, also, just remember, it's what you said about consistency. So you just adjust as you go, but don't give up because it didn't work, or you had to adjust, or don't throw in the towel, or wait till the next month to start over. Just start over where you're at, okay? Now, budgeting, and I've learned through some of my sessions, is more about communication and behaviors than it is about numbers, right? So what I mean by that is that what I should say by that is the struggle with budgeting is a lot more about communication and behaviors than numbers. And this is why that dream date, that's why that, spending the time to discover your why, especially with your spouse, if you have one, is so important, because you need to be on the same page. You need to communicate. Now, I will say that I've had clients who, one person was ready, this particular couple was in debt and they needed to get out of debt. They agreed on that. But one spouse was ready to eat nothing but peanut butter jelly and ramen noodles for the rest of the month and save all their money to throw it towards the debt. And we call and a few, we call them the nerds. And then we call the free spirits. And that means no harm in either one. It's just the way we categorize this personality sometimes. But the other person was like, no, I don't want to do that. I still want to be able to, go out to eat once a month. It was very important for them to still have other things and not cut everything out right away. So you have the two extremes. And so as a financial coach, I find myself a lot of times bringing those two together and finding the middle ground that both spouses can be in agreement on. And that's why that dream date is so important, right? Because they have to work towards the same goal. Now, the two biggest budget myths out there, in my opinion, and one I've touched on already tonight, is that budgeting is restrictive and takes away your freedom. And that is absolutely not true, right? If you don't believe me, challenge me to prove it to you. I would love that, all right? Now, the second biggest budgeting myth, and I've not seen anyone in the comments, I've not noticed anyone in the comments pop this one up, and that is budgeting within a regular income. I've had people say, I can't do a budget because my income is irregular. Now, normally that's to like having a budget or having an income based on commission or sales. But again, it's not true, and I can show you how to do it. All right. Now, two other caveats that I want to throw out there about budgeting before we move on is template budgets don't work. You can't set a budget and forget it. You have to do the budget every single month. And I am guilty of that. I would create this beautiful masterpiece budget, and I'm the nerd. And then at the end of the month, wonder what happened to it. Or maybe it worked for the first month and next month, like, oh, it didn't happen to it. The kids had a birthday party to go to, or this, or, something expense came out. So when you sit down to the budget, have your calendar with you. And yes, there will be a large portion of the budget that doesn't change every month, but you will have to adjust as you go. And again, it's something that is a learning curve. Now, and be sure, the second thing is when you're going through that, look for those budget busters. And we did mention them earlier. Usually there are things like eating out, collecting all the TV services, whether it's, cable, Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus and HBO Max and all of the other, I've had people say they're saving money because they got rid of cable, but then they've attracted or accumulated all these, $10 to $20 memberships that have now got them up to the same amount they spent before, even more. And if your goal is to reduce it, then we need to look at that. So, but look for the budget busters. All right. So we're coming to the end. We're running down here of what I want to cover tonight. So I want to know, what's your takeaway? Whether you have collectors calling your home every day or you're completely out of debt, as a financial coach, I am here to help you to reach your goals, right? So I want to know what your takeaway from tonight is. I'd love to hear what your goals you created tonight. And if you're sitting back and you haven't really processed it, that's great. Share them with me afterwards via email or in our Facebook group. And I also want to hear, I would love to hear what your next step is. Like, what's the first step you're going to take towards reaching one of those goals, right? What short-term sacrifices are you willing to make to work towards those goals? And how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Because those are really important. Now, want to learn more? Join our Facebook community. It's called Faithful and Financially Free Families, because we must keep learning, growing, and investing in ourselves. One way you can do that is by hopping in the group. We have a book club each month. There's also a community where I share info and you can ask questions. We have education, support, inspiration, motivation, accountability. We have accountability posts every Friday called Frugal Fridays. But it's just a way to create community. And of course, I already mentioned book club. All right. So hop on and join us in that community. Now, if you want more help than that, you want personal help, you're like, oh, we all have different talents. And you're just like, after watching this, you're on overload. You don't know where to begin and you don't want to do it alone. Or even if you are married, you feel like you guys need some extra help in the communication piece of it, or even just the number side of it, whatever you're at. Schedule a free consultation with me. We will discuss where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. Does that sound familiar, right? That's where it all starts. And then we'll decide if financial coaching is right for you, because not everyone is ready for coaching and not everyone needs coaching, and that is totally cool. So, but I have this promise. I make a promise to you that if after the free consultation, you decide that you want to move forward with coaching, and you can't afford it, I make this promise. If I can't find the money in your budget, I will coach you for free. Now, I say that because two things. One is I'm going to challenge you to find how to find money in your budget. And two is that honestly, I'm here to help. So if you really can't afford it, I want to be able to help you anyway. All right. So that wraps up everything I have for tonight. Thank you so much for attending. I'm gonna stop the recording, and then we can have a time to chat. And the reason I'm doing this is so that we can have a little bit more privacy, so people can feel more free to ask questions. That's not going to be broadcasted on YouTube and Facebook and so forth. So, but thank you all for attending, and I'm so excited for what 2021 has for you. I forgot to put a slide up there. You can reach me on Instagram or Facebook is Linda Mae Myers, and I'm definitely in the community that I shared earlier. And then if you registered for this, you will also receive an email from me with a recording from this and a link to schedule a free consultation if you so choose. All right, guys. Thank you and have a great night.